In late September 2012, waste collection workers at the Toleja food court in China Nanjing noticed something unusual. For 2 consecutive days, the large garbage bins were filled with what appeared to be meat nuggets covered in ketchup. At first, this wasn't particularly strange, as food waste, including cooked meat, was common from nearby restaurants. However, among the workers was an elderly veteran who had served in the war. While moving the garbage bin, this elderly worker accidentally knocked it over, and while cleaning up the spilled contents, he examined one of the crushed nuggets. Looking at it closely, the elderly man exclaimed in shock, "This doesn't look like animal meat at all." His concern was warranted. During the war, he had worked as a medic and had seen all kinds of human remains at the hospital daily. At first, his co-workers dismissed his concerns, but feeling that something was wrong, the elderly man stepped away and called the police. When Nanjing police and detectives arrived at the scene, they too felt something was off about the nuggets and immediately cordoned off the area. Forensic examination at the scene confirmed the nuggets were human flesh. Once the severity of the situation was confirmed, police forces immediately began searching the entire nearby dump area and continued their search for several days. After forensic experts pieced together the fragments found by search teams, they were able to reconstruct a body minus the head, including the torso and limbs. Analysis of the torso revealed the victim was a young woman in her 20s, taller than average with a full bust, and had never given birth or breastfed. The victim's body had been cut into hundreds of pieces. The cut marks on the mutilated body showed random cutting patterns by someone without knowledge of human anatomy. Most of the body parts showed the sign of repeated freezing and thawing, suggesting the body was initially cut into large pieces, stored in a refrigerator, and gradually cut into smaller pieces. Forensic experts estimated this process took at least 10 days. What was particularly horrifying was that the pieces had been deep-fried in hot oil to mask the smell and destroy DNA, then covered in ketchup to deceive people. While fingerprints of the suspected perpetrator were found on the bags, the black plastic bags were commonly available anywhere. The extracted fingerprints couldn't be found in the police criminal database. This meant the fingerprint owner was an ordinary citizen with no criminal records. The only remaining clue was the victim's remains. The forensic team successfully extracted DNA from the remains. Contrary to the perpetrator's intentions, not all DNA could be destroyed even by cooking in hot oil. Police first investigated missing person reports for young women in the Nanjing area. While there were many missing persons, most didn't match the victim's physical characteristics. Suspecting the victim might be from another region, they expanded their investigation nationwide, but months of effort yielded no leads. Why hadn't the family filed a report? There was a possibility the victim had no family. The case remained stagnant from September 2012 until July 2014, almost 2 years later. Then on July 22nd, Nanjing police received a report from an elderly couple about their daughter who had been missing for 2 years. Remarkably, the physical characteristic described by the elderly couple matched the victim exactly, and DNA tests conducted days later confirmed the match between the elderly couple and the victim. The victim's name was Ching, a woman from Yangcheng City in northern Jiangsu province. The elderly couple said Ching had moved to Nanjing about 3 years earlier, wanting to experience city life. Ching used to call her parents regularly, but at some point, contact ceased. They filed a missing person report after her Nanjing apartment landlord contacted them about an expired lease. The police and elderly couple investigated Ching's apartment. The interior was covered in dust as if long abandoned, and they discovered her ID, driver's license, bank cards, jewelry. and phone were missing. Police asked the elderly couple why they hadn't filed a missing person report earlier when they hadn't heard from her for years. The couple hesitated but then revealed the truth. They had a major argument with He Ching and hadn't been in contact for years. He Ching had disliked studying from an early age, and after graduating high school, she looked for work in cities like Nanjing, Shanghai, and Suzhou. Months later, she returned home wearing a flashy golden clothes. When her parents questioned her about her work, they discovered she was working at an entertainment establishment in Nanjing, which led to their major argument and loss of contact. However, worried about He Ching, the parents had tried to file a missing person report immediately. In their small town of Yancheng, police influence was very limited. The Yancheng police made excuses and dismissed it as a family dispute, refusing to open a case. However, Chinese law allowed forced missing person reports after 2 years of absence. Thus, in July after 2 years, Yancheng police reluctantly accepted the case and forwarded the missing person report to Nanjing police. The identification of the victim was a major breakthrough in a case that had no leads. Police began investigating by questioning young women who had worked with He Ching at the entertainment establishment, leading them to an acquaintance named Wang. Wang wasn't surprised to hear about He Ching's brutal murder, saying she had expected something like this would happen. While Wang claimed to know likely suspect, she was hesitant to cooperate with the investigation. This was because Wang feared retaliation from the perpetrator and was newly married and pregnant. Police persistently requested her cooperation, explaining the Chinese citizen had a duty and responsibility to assist with investigation based on information they possessed. Eventually convinced by the police, Wang identified a likely suspect, a man in his 30s named Cao, who worked as an executive at a state-owned enterprise. Police urgently arrested Cao and began their investigation. While Cao claimed he didn't know He Ching was dead, it was revealed that he was the last person to call her on the day of her death, leading to further questioning. Additionally, when their fingerprints from the black plastic bags perfectly matched Cao's, he finally confessed to the crime. His confession was shocking. Cao, born in 1983 in Nanjing, was an only child. Both his parents were government officers, and he had been an honest model student since childhood. After graduating from prestigious Nanjing University's transportation department, Cao was introduced to a large state-owned enterprise through his civil servant father, where he quickly rose to an executive position. Leading various large-scale projects, he began enjoying his position of power, accepting bribes and entertainment from subcontractors. Going back to 2010, while being entertained by subcontractors at an entertainment establishment, Cao fell for He Ching at first sight. Afterward, Cao frequently visited the establishment, spending large sums of money on her. Unable to have intimate relationship with his wife who was pregnant with their daughter, Cao became deeply involved with He Ching, and their relationship developed into romantic after she quit working at the establishment. Cao, an executive at a state-owned enterprise in his 30s, gradually became a tool to satisfy He Ching's vanity. He Ching, who had a strong personality and was vain, eventually demanded that Cao divorce his wife. When Cao refused, He Ching began causing trouble at his workplace and threatening his marriage. Finally, He Ching demanded 1 million yuan to end their relationship. But Cao, having already spent most of his money on He Ching's vanity, desperately offered 690,000 yuan for their separation. They chose to part ways, and Cao even changed his phone number hoping for a fresh start. Some time passed, and Cao's wife gave birth to their daughter. However, the insatiable He Ching discovered Kao's new phone number and began threatening him again over the remaining 310,000 yuan. Finally, at He Ching's apartment, an argument escalated until Kao began strangling her in a surge of emotion. Given the overwhelming difference in physical strength, He Ching couldn't resist as her eyes turned blood red and her tongue protruded. When Kao released his grip and came to his senses, He Ching was already dead. In despair, Kao took a knife from the kitchen and tried to slash his wrists, but couldn't go through it when he thought of his daughter's face. He considered turning himself in, but couldn't imagine himself, having grown up privileged, surviving harsh prison life. Anyway, Kao thought the worst outcome would be execution, and his struggle to avoid this fate began. The day after the incident, Kao had a 2-day business trip scheduled to Shandong. It was impossible to leave the body in Nanjing's relatively warm September weather. The decomposing body could cause an odor throughout the building. From this point, Kao began meticulously planning and executing his cover-up. First, he had a large freezer delivered from an appliance store near He Ching's apartment. However, the salesperson said it would take 2 to 3 days due to lack of inventory. Unable to wait, Kao paid extra to urgently purchase the display model freezer. He lied that it was urgently needed for an ice cream shop. Kao quickly moved He Ching's body to the bathroom and received the freezer's delivery in the living room. Investigation revealed that Kao's appeared relaxed while moving the freezer with delivery workers, even smoking and chatting with them. After the delivery workers left, Kao immediately put the body in the freezer and, concerned it might not freeze completely in 1 day, he carefully placed deodorant in the freezer. 2 days later, returning from his business trip, Kao decided it was impossible to keep the body in He Ching's apartment and decided to move it. Kao owned a rental house in an isolated neighborhood called Toleja in Nanjing. It was like a vacation home occasionally used by his family. Kao determined the rental house was ideal for his work as it was in an isolated area with few residents. Kao purchased bone-cutting knives, saw blades, garbage bags, plastic wrap, and large bags from a nearby market. He returned to the apartment and cut the frozen body into multiple pieces. Not knowing human anatomy well, Kao took a long time to dismember the body. During this process, some bloodstains were left in the bathroom as the body thawed. Afterward, Kao carefully wrapped the body parts in plastic wrap, placed them in garbage bags, put these into larger bags, and took a taxi to move them to his rental house in Toleja. Going out again, Kao purchased various kitchen items from nearby market, including a pressure cooker, steamer, deep fryer, and oil, and began processing the body in ways too horrific to describe. While most criminals typically dispose of bodies in remote mountains or rivers, Kao boldly cut the bodies into small pieces, steamed and fried them, covered them in ketchup, and disposed of them in food court garbage bins. Most shocking was that Kao kept He Ching's head. He stripped the flesh from her head, cooked it, reassembled the bones, and kept them in his safe. He also kept her ID, cards, and jewelry. Using He Ching's phone, Kao texted her parents saying she was moving to another city due to poor health, keeping them reassured for several months until the phone was disconnected due to unpaid bills. Meanwhile, Kao disposed of all the remains and cleaned up. He threw away all the crime tools, thoroughly cleaned both He Ching's apartment and the rental house in Toleja, and sold a freezer to a scrap dealer. The elderly couple and the police officers were speechless upon hearing Kao's shocking and chilling confession. Later at trial, Kao was sentenced to death. Many people argued that Kao wasn't normal, but rather a psychopath. What do you think?